All right, in the past couple of weeks or so, we've been working over passing, working on, passing versus somebody that's on their knees, passing versus somebody that's sitting down. That's kind of been like our topic. So we'll continue kind of heading in that direction. Maybe some strategy that you may find yourself, doing while you're into these positions. So a couple of things to keep in mind, all right? It's the intention. A lot of the times it's going to be crucial, whether you're practicing or even if you are competing, okay? It's how you sit, how you begin. It's going to be very important. So let's talk about practice real quick. A lot of times in practice, when we go into the sparring session and we say, we're going to start on the ground, we're not going to work for takedowns today, people will assume various positions. Some people will assume something like this. Other people will sit on their tailbones, feet together, kind of leaning forward. Other people will be more like in my position. Some people will be like this, right, with a knee up, kind of like in a lunge position. All right. So how you begin is going to determine how you are going to obviously approach and react to your partner. Now, one of the common things that I've always heard from beginners and intermediate, grapplers, experienced grapplers, is that, they may say, well, every single time we engage, we always get locked into this battle that nobody wants to back out of. For example, we'll be like, all right, let's go. And then it's like, it's constantly doing stuff like this, okay? And then, they'll be like, it's just so frustrating because I feel like I'm just stuck there for a long time. And by the time I finally try to do something, the bell rings or the person ends up taking me down and I'm already so frustrated that I kind of forget what I'm doing, okay? Or another one is, I'm always being pulled into their guard and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to prevent that. Like, as we slap hands and we bump fists, like they grab onto my collars and they just pull me into their guard and so frustrating, okay? Again, that all has to do with how you start, your position, your posture, all right? Your attention to the detail, so to speak. So let's start with that one first, the one where you both just kind of clash and like two bulls refusing to, give in. Yeah.
So from those three positions, those three starting positions, in order, which one has the most opportunity? Like, is the most versatile to the one that's to the less versatile?
Okay. The one that's more versatile is the one that you're in. Okay. That seated position on the hip, that is the most versatile. Because if I beat you to the punch and I just like bull rush you and tackle you down, you can always fall on your back and you can catch me in some sort of guard. Okay? Because I'm going to be lunging first. And most people will try to push at the shoulders first instead of trying to control the knees and the hip first as they go forward. Okay? And that could be just the lack of the experience. That's what I mean. So it's like we slap, like this, and she's sitting down, one hand can be on the ground too, and people will lunge at the shoulders like this, okay? So this position is very versatile because even if we're here, and I start to maybe go back, you can always come up forward, okay? If I decide and if I decide to move forward, engage, but just engage just the right amount, and I make the mistake of bringing a leg up, right? So we go here, and now we're doing this. It's like, I get here, well, yep, at that point, I am now susceptible to be, swept over because she's managed to get her hook inside my leg, okay?
That's the second one.
The second most versatile, in my opinion, is the one where you're sitting on your tailbone. Yeah, your feet together, tailbone like this. Okay. Same thing, because if I try to tackle you, you can always just fall back. And this one is a really good tactic against like heavier people, right? Because you're not gonna take him into your close guard. You're gonna leave the butterfly hooks. Your feet are gonna aim to stay between their thighs. So we go here, and they go, I gotcha, and they start to push you down. Now you're stuck like this. See how my hips and my knees are back? That means that only my chest weight is down on them, and that's a little bit more
Less weight.
yeah, that's obviously less weight on this person on the bottom. Okay, so even if you're a big person or a smaller person, that butterfly hook is great to negate a lot of the weight that someone uses to try to tackle you. Okay, you can also use that to come back up. So we're down on the ground, and people decide to try to get away from you. Well, you can follow that up, and you can like pop up to your feet if you're smaller. If you're this person's smaller than this person. Okay, because as a person's backing away, you can hold on to their collar because they've got big, a lot of weight behind it, and you can pull yourself up and get behind them, get to the headlock positions, or just get back up to your feet and get back to neutral position. Okay, so that would be the second, in my opinion, most versatile position to start in. The least versatile, in my opinion, is the one where you begin on your knees. Yeah, like me. So, like this. Okay? That's the least versatile position any of us can be in, especially if we both are in it. Okay? If you see somebody do this, it usually means that they're going to stalemate each other, and they are very reliant on their upper bodies. Okay? They use their upper body strength to try to pin people to the ground and try to manipulate their angles and positions. Right.
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of people, if your opponent starts on their knees and you're down like this, you feel like they're kind of like over you.
Yep.
So then you'll get up onto your knees because you
Yeah.
don't want to be like
right
pushed down or whatever.
Yes, and that's a big factor.
Really, yeah.
It's not. Okay, so that's a huge telltale sign. When both people are on their knees, you should expect them to be, like I said, very upper body oriented, and they're gonna stalemate each other. Okay, and this position is usually the one that's the strongest that is actually going to end up winning. Okay, well let me put it this way: the strongest or the one that has the most stamina. Okay, is going to end up winning because this is the strength match right now. All right. So then, how can we go about it? Again, this is the most versatile position, the one where you sit down on one hip. If you start on your knees and you see the person start on their knees, and you know for a fact, okay, that they will not budge from this position, whether because you've watched them during practice, you've had experience training with them, or you can just feel that they are determined to stay on their knees. Okay, which that's pretty easy to do. Feel their intention. Like when you go here and it's like you're already in this position, you're like crap. Okay, don't fret, not a big deal. If that happens, immediately just sit on your hip. Okay, nobody's telling you you have to stay in that one spot the whole time. All right, that's not true at all. The thing about jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu technique is the person who is able to use their legs the most, okay, is probably going to end up winning. Or I would say they have the higher chance of winning the positions. All right? So if we start here and immediately, Melissa feels that I'm not going to budge, well, just sit on your hip. And then now you're able to engage the person, okay? Because if the person is not aware of their weight and they kind of get into the tunnel vision of I'm going to pin you to the ground, they will make this mistake that I just did. They start to get off of their heels with their butt like this. okay, like this. Well, all she has to do now is just kind of monitor this little spot right here between our hips, okay? If she doesn't feel comfortable coming closer to me, that's okay, because this usually happens. She can put that foot right there and kind of give it a little bit of gas, which is gonna be my cue to go like, I try to push you forward now. And as soon as that happens, as soon as I start to push back into it, you can tuck the leg in, and you can just start to sweep, over. Okay, because you're manipulating that momentum. You can use your variations. You can go, scissor, butterfly hook type of variation, and it's like over your leg. Or you can start to really push on the thigh or on the knee as it starts to come forward, and it's like, and you start to create your opportunities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay? So don't be afraid of that. And just like Melissa said, sometimes it's overwhelming, especially if you're smaller and you have someone that's taller, maybe wider, or maybe their muscles are showing through their gi, and you go like this, and you're like, oh crap. From her point of view, it just feels like there's a giant mountain that's getting ready to just fall on top of you. All right? If that's the case, here's what you need to do. As soon as we go pop, pop, right there. You see that? You just created space. If that happens, then you can really get to see the whole mountain as a big picture, okay? You will be able to see what their intentions might be. They may go, well, okay? If that's the case, then you know that A, they're too slow to come up on their feet. B, they're too inexperienced to realize that, hey, I can come up on my feet, okay? Or C, they're too stubborn, okay? And most of the time, it's or lazy. Yes, thank you. That's another one, very important one, lazy, okay? So it's usually, in this order, this is how it goes. If the person is inexperienced, well, that's it. They are too inexperienced to know any better, right? And they're too slow to try to come up and move on their feet, so they move on their knees. And so that means they're very upper body oriented, okay? If they are experienced, the number one reason why they choose not to come up to their feet or change positions is that they're too lazy, first and foremost. They're too comfortable already being in this position.
You're too confident.
Or confident, yeah, being able to pin people down and throw them to the ground. Okay, because I know you guys have seen that before, where we'll be on our knees, right, and the person's like literally just like throw them over to the side. Okay, or even if she sits down, but maybe she's not too confident with this position, and they go like this, and they're like picking them up and throw them. Okay, they still throw them, or they'll tackle right through them. They get too overconfident. Okay, either way, those are some of the reasons why they will not move accordingly when you create that space. Okay, so again, when we start, when we go like ha, and it's like, and you create that. You sit down because you feel it, right? And you create that space right there. You create that space. I start to move like this. Oh, buddy, that's easy. Okay? You've got two options. You can, get up. You can, grab them by the collar, and as you get up, you bring their face to the ground so you can try to go to the back. So you reach in. You can go cross color or same side color, whatever you want. Okay? And as I try to reach forward, see how my butt's coming off the ground and I'm reaching? You're just going to go ahead, come out. No, wait, just technical stand up. Just technical stand up, go ahead. You just do a technical stand up since you're faster than them, and then you just pull them down. You just pull them down like in a sprawl, almost like if they try to tackle your legs as That's a reaction from that. Okay? And you get to their back. And usually when you get to their back, they'll start to go like, they'll do this. Okay? They will literally throw themselves to the ground like this. All right? It's kind of like you've seen little puppies and little kittens play with each other, right? When one of them takes the other back, they look back and they're like that, and they throw themselves to the back. That's exactly the same look that you get when you surprise somebody like this, okay? So that's option one. Option two is knowing that they're going to come forward on their knees and they're reaching for your collars. So you can let them get your collars and you get your grips around their grips, right? Like around their collars, and you set them up for the trips. Okay? That's the big thing. So let's pretend that she already scooted back because of the lack of space that we have. So get closer, please. So she already scooted back. Now I'm coming forward, managed to get here. Well, she gets in her position, and whichever sweep she decides to do, she's going to be doing it. Okay? And obviously, the sweep that you do, you're going to have to keep an eye on which arm are they going to be posting with, which leg are they going to be posting with, like, are they committed with both of their hands on your collars, okay? If they're committed with both hands on your collars, you don't have to worry about an arm posting out and preventing those sweeps, okay? But if you feel or have a sense that maybe one grip is not very committed and they're kind of like doing this already, then you need to fight for that grip and control that hand before you go. Whether it's, if you try to go for the elbow and they pull back and you got to control the wrist and just, okay. And you got to just time it and you got to go for it. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
See, so now you're starting to build your strategy here. All right? And that's if you both start on your knees. You go, and it's like, oh, crap. I feel like this person's way over too much, or you can disengage. Sometimes by disengaging means you have to get rid of the grips because they already got the grips, right? And you got to scoot back. So now you can see how they're going to react. Okay? So that's usually a good way. Understand? If you start on your knees again with another person, once again, if you feel like you cannot overwhelm them with your physicality by being like this, just go to your hip and start working with your guard. Okay? Don't be afraid of that. Sometimes, as you get more experience being a guard player of sort, you don't have to be just a guard player to do submissions and stuff. Sometimes you play the guards so that you can offset the weight of the person that's heavier than you so that you can ultimately come up on top. Okay? We bump, we go, and let's get closer. Okay? And it's like now we feel it. Well, Melissa now feels like I'm the bigger person. I'm going to start to throw her around. So maybe she sits on her hip right there. Okay? As she throws on her hip, here's the trick. You want to push. You don't want to pull. If you get the collar grip, especially if you get the same side of collar grip, you want to frame against it. If you pull, you pull yourself into their abyss, so to speak. Okay? So if you get the collar grip, if it's the same side collar grip, you want to frame against it. Why? Well, you frame against it, most of the time, they will pull like this without realizing. They feel something is pushing them back, so they're going to try to push forward. And this causes their butt to come off the ground, off of their heels, like this. You see that? And now because Melissa has this frame, this is the distance that she can work with. This is her proper distance to work with. She can easily now butt scoot in and get the, get the desired action that she wants. Does that make sense there? Because you are letting them load up on themselves. You're not doing it for them. one, they may be too heavy, which God forbid that ever happens that you have to load somebody up like that. That's where you're going to injure your knees. That's where you will injure your neck, or you're trying to hold somebody up like this, okay? Two, they may be too long. That happens, okay? Russell, believe it or not, this is exactly what I do to you. Those few times when we've grappled, you are way longer than I am, okay? Hey, man, like from your head to your waist, it's probably the same height that my whole body is, all right? So that's a big problem for me. So I will let you get to these grips. I will frame you like Melissa just did to me, and I will allow you to rise up. And when you do that, that's game over. Okay? I will sweep you to one side, I sweep you to the other side. I will, kind of shook you down to the ground and try to get behind your back, that kind of stuff. Okay? Or I will let you rise so high up that I'm gonna dive underneath your legs and go for like half guard controls that I know that you cannot reach underneath because you're longer and you're kind of have to like try to dig in there and it feels weird. Okay? So that's how I would set something up like that, right? And same thing with you, Phil. Like I'm kind of calling you out on this because you like to be like this a lot. You play this game a lot, okay? And a lot of times when I go with you, I will hand fight you. I kind of hand fight you, try to get you to get more like I gotta get it, and you go and you get it, and as soon as you get it, you kind of tend to lift up, and when you lift up, all I have to do is just butts good in, and then when you sit your weight back down, that happens. Okay. That happens.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Brian Bailey sweat me like that too. Now I know why.
Yeah, it's he's letting you load up. Okay. For him, you're doing all the work, and he takes all the credit. Okay. Like he allows you to make him look good. Okay. So this is what's happening from here, all right? On some occasion, when you feel very comfortable with your ability to scramble, with your ability to play guard, whether offensive, defensive, counter offensive, maybe, guard work, you can allow the person to literally just overwhelm you. Like, let their body engulf you. All right, so we start here again. Melissa decides to sit on her hip. She kind of stays in that position, right? And the person is like Godzilla. They're like slowly coming over like this. So she has allowed me to like engulf her. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, why would she do that?
So she's gonna wait for you to get loaded up, and then she's just gonna sweep you.
Yes, for sure. She's actually using her whole body as a ramp.
Okay.
Okay. So now that I feel like, yes, I've got it. Okay. Well, by doing that, I do a couple of things. One, I probably or most likely let her get underhooks on me. Okay? Because if she were to be able to get underhooks on me, and then she gets her hips underneath my center of gravity, I'm pretty screwed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's not much I can do at that point. Okay? So this is what I mean. So she sits on the other side, and she she frames, and she allows me to not engulf her. That underhook, usually right there happens. Okay? Right. So a couple reactions that will happen from there. Okay? You willingly let the person engulf you. If you get the underhook and the person's not too experienced, I will bet you $1 that they're gonna go for a headlock. Okay? Like 10 out of 10 times. When this person's not too experienced, they're gonna go for that headlock. All right, this is what I mean. She sits on the hip. You know, she kind of frames, can you little resistance? I'm engulfing her. She gets her underhook, and immediately, because the head's there, it's like, they try to go here, and they try to like, sorry, and they try to, you know, like sprawl on the person. Okay. Now here's the trick. As that happens, she cannot sustain my weight on her head while I'm trying to apply this pressure. So she's going to fall on her shoulder. And as she falls on her shoulder, she's going to shrug her shoulders up. You know, she's going to tuck her ears in. Okay. And as she does that, she's going to fall to one side a little bit. And the underhook, she's going to shuck, you know, like uppercut with her own shoulder on the backside and make my body go over her head. Okay. So it's like falling. Okay. But here's the trick. You don't want to fall on your palm. You don't want to fall on your forearm or your elbow. You fall on your shoulder. You have to tuck. Okay? If you fall on your shoulder or you fall on your, like, on any frame, your neck will absorb the impact. Okay? So you're going to have to tuck the elbow in and let the momentum carry you. As you shrug, it should be like this. And try to kind of like work towards your knee as it's happening. Sometimes you can get to your knee. Sometimes you can just get more to your side and then kind of like push your head out of the way. Okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? But it's, again, it feels very scary because you've got a large mass coming down towards your head. So as soon as she falls over to the side, it's like she's got to like tuck in. Okay, but as you're tucking in, you kind of keep your head on the person's body. As soon as you disengage that head, injury's gonna happen. Okay, so you gotta stay listening to the heart all the way. Not on your elbow. Okay, gotta start listening to your heart all the way, so that you can slide out from the bottom or from underneath them. Okay, and this is the awkward position where like you as the smaller person has to scurry along and try to climb to the top one way. Go ahead. One way or another. Okay? Right? Now she went for the both hooks because she can get her legs around my waist. But if I were to be a little bit wider, if I was 2 Edgars, that would be impossible. Okay? If I was 2 Edgars in width, that would be impossible. So she would not go for both hooks. That's just common sense. But believe it or not, many times that common sense is not there. And many times this is where the grappler will get themselves hurt right there. Because they stay too long into that teeter-totter position. And as the bigger person, they can just roll over to the side. And that's where a lot of their knees will get hurt because they get stuck on the bottom in a weird position. Okay, like her knees would get stuck in the bottom weird position. Okay, so just try to get to the back, and this is where you would end up doing more like hip rides. Okay, do you guys know what I mean by a hip ride?
No.
Okay, so if you have one leg in, like one hook in, technically, okay, like this, and you come out to the back, you come up to your knee, and you kind of put your weight on their hip. Bring your here. So what you do is you want to pull their knee wide so that you can get to your shin, and then you bring your other knee behind their hamstring and you straddle their leg, and you kind of sit on their hip. You kind of push into their hip. That's called a hip ride. Okay, that would be ideal. A smaller person going against a bigger person, a wider person, if you want to still kind of ride them from the back. Okay, so.
Do I take a hook?
No, just come up. Yeah, like that. Okay, as you do that, you're pulling your knee out, and you're also making, like in my position, person do a split. Okay, and then you have she has her right knee behind my left leg, So now her hip is straddling on my leg, and she's driving into it. So now it feels like my hip is pushed in as my right hip is still up. Okay, and so it's very hard for me to move. And if I have to sustain myself up, I have to use my arms a lot. And this is very thing with bigger persons, right? It's like this. They can power themselves up. That's not a big issue. And sometimes they feel like that's no threat at all. But if you're on that hip right, it's all good. Okay? Because in order for them to get me, let's say like in a headlock again, they're going to have to bring this knee to the inside, reach all the way up, and do this. But wait a minute. In order for me to finish a proper headlock, what needs to happen to my hands?
Bring them together.
All hands needs to be together. Okay? So watch this. Okay? You see how that's not missing in timber. Okay? So it's kind of like sometimes you sacrifice the headlock so that you can end up in a very good position like the mount. Okay? And like a small person going against a bigger person, right? Rounder person, wider person, stronger person, I will use that position to get to the mount to transition to a knee on belly. Because I know they're going to try to push me and thrash about, and I can move better when I'm on knee on belly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? As opposed to being a mount, because they can always just pick me up and put me to the side. Okay? Because the strain factor is always there. Okay? So little things like that, little strategies like that will help you a lot. And this works very well because you guys, I would consider you guys to be on the bigger side, not because you're fat or anything, just because you're taller, you have a bigger structure than I do, right? So when you go against other people, other men or even women, the same body type as you, this is something how you should approach it.
Okay.
Okay, so she's manipulating me and giving me sometimes what I want, which is a lot of times like that headlock, or trying to like pull or push too much, only to set me up for failure. Okay, but it gets tricky because like you have to be good at sensing the weight distribution of the other person, and then filling in those gaps with your own weight distribution control. Okay, so now you're no longer using your weight distribution to attack them. You're actually using your opponent's own weight distribution against them. Okay, because if they're in that verge and then you just get right here, they're in a dilemma to where if they shift their weight a little bit, they lose. Any direction they may shift it, they lose. And if they try to push into you, they lose because you've got such a much bigger control over them that you can overwhelm them. Okay? Make sense? And here's another thing, like, because she may be shorter. Let's go back to that position real quick. Yeah. Okay, here, okay? So it's like, I'm doing this. And because she's shorter, guess what happens? Like, if she starts to push into me, and I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to turn into her, she can always go to her feet and start tackling. So now she can use her legs and her body to the utmost potential. Okay? Just because now I'm bigger and stronger, wider, whatever it is, now I am at a very big disadvantage because she got me in these weird transitions and kind of weird controls that if she has to, she can disengage at any time to come up to her knees or to come off of her knees and use her feet to push into the person. Okay, and even if that's not successful, she can still like head snap me down to the ground and get to the back. Okay, or just disengage entirely, and now we're in a neutral position. And start all over again. And that's where you may get into the whole battle of who has the most stamina or who has the most conditioning, where maybe me as an inexperienced or a little bit of experienced person with a lot of mass, I'm already tired, right? Because I was expecting to lay and pray on top of my opponent or my training partner for the rest of the 3 minutes that's remaining on the round. But that's not the case now. Now I have to go and chase them. Now I actually have to do something. Put an effort behind it. I can't get lazy now because I know that if I do, she'll probably choke me. Okay? So see, now you're starting to build the situation against the other person, against the bigger person. And believe it or not, it's in these little situations, like after this little interaction that her and I we just had, that we just described, do not be surprised if this happens. Like she managed to disengage, right? Like she came up to her toes, and I'm just like, no, I'm refusing to go. I'm still super strong, and she disengages, and it's like, okay.
They want to rest.
They do that, yes. They will pull guard. They will pull guard because they want to rest. Okay? They feel the tension, the pressure on their knees and their joints from trying to fight off all these weird positions that they can't help but just go like,
Awkward angles.
yeah, all those awkward. They go like, oh, okay. And when they do that a very bad way anyways, because they've never practiced properly how to work the guard off their back because they're too proud of that, right? So they'll just be like, like this, that they can probably keep their big legs up because they're already tired, and if they try to move, it's like, and by that time that's happening, you're already, you've already danced one way or the other, and no big deal. Okay, does that make sense there?
Mm-hmm.
So, again, how you start will determine, the action reaction. How your partner starts, your opponent starts, will also determine the action reaction. Okay, it's always a give and a take. Let's see what else. Sometimes I will allow the person to pass my guard in order for me to get up. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, again, this is what happens. And again, it's all about strategy and knowing your distance. When we say like, hey, Melissa, you're going to go with Edgar. And it's like, all right. And it goes like this, okay? Me being in Melissa's position, I do not scoot forward. Okay? Why would I not want to scoot any closer to my partner that's bigger?
Why don't you give up all your advantage because you want him to come to you?
Exactly. I want them to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because by them coming to me, that means that they have to reach for me. And when I see how they're going to reach for me, I'm already like, oh, they prefer the left grip. Oh, they prefer the right grip. Oh, guess what? They prefer to stay on their knees with their butt on the ground. So that means I'm going to push into them. I can't pull them. I'm going to have to push into them, maybe tackle them, or maybe just like use this momentum to get up off my butt and get to my feet and dance around to the back. Okay? Or I'm going to sweep them to the side because all their weight's coming forward. Does that make sense? And you can use that same tactic against anybody, like a bigger person versus a bigger person, right? We're like, Melissa, you're paired up with Edgar, and I'm walking over here, but, like, You know, she's right there, and you can immediately just extend your hand, like bump it, like there, you know, like that. You extend your hand, and you will be surprised how many people will stop right here, because they want to be right here, so they're within arm's reach. Okay, so I could just be coming this way, and she just reaches her hands like, oh, right there. And if they don't stop, what do?
Sweep them.
Scoot back a little bit because we haven't started yet. But I like your thinking. Okay, so because I'm going like this, like, hey, I'm gonna be your partner. You're like, okay, let's go. See, she's maintained that distance. Okay, and then now she's allowed me to settle and then reach. As opposed to, like, hey, coach said I'm gonna be your partner. Okay, let's have fun today. Right? And I'm already like, shaking her down. And this is where people feel extremely overwhelmed from her point of view, because they're like, there's a giant mountain and it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. Oh God, it's right on top of me.
That's when people will come up to their knees.
And that's why people come up to their knees,
Mm-hmm.
because they feel like, I need to get to the same
Have
height.
some equal playing field.
Yeah. So don't get stuck into that mentality, and don't get sucked into that mentality also. Okay, you have complete control over how you approach and start and move. Nobody says stay right there. Okay, let's go. And you're like, I can't move until the round begins. Nobody does that. Okay. Again, the only time people may do that is because they're not experienced. They get intimidated too easily, hence they're not experienced. Okay, they're what's another word? They're not confident in their abilities. Okay, and that one right there does not have to do with experience, in my opinion. I've met many people, and I've trained with many people in my life that have been training just as much, if not more than I have. And I will still put them, or they will still be put in some positions that they are not confident at all. And you can just see them welt under that pressure. Okay? So that's something that they have to work on. And usually, believe it or not, it's because it hasn't clicked on them that they can move. Okay? They can move before we begin. All right? This is why.
Some people want to keep moving forward because they feel like they got to jump on that.
Yeah. Listen. Yeah.
It's annoying. That's annoying.
Well, as annoying as it is, for me now, I've just found it very entertaining, and I have a good time with it. Okay. I don't know how many times I've had. Yeah. I don't know how many times I've had people try to get the jump on me, right? Like I'll be like with Melissa like this, and I'll be like, you know, I'll roll with you next. And they're like, okay. And they're like, oh, hey, man, did you see these fights this weekend? Man, it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was like exciting. It's like,
Yeah.
Is the clock on yet? No? Okay. So what'd you think about that fight? And see how I've already positioned myself at an angle?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they're like, okay, go. And they're going, ugh.
Yeah, they do it on purpose.
You know?
Mhm.
It's whatever. I've gone to a point where like, okay, I'm curious to see what you are going to do, because I want to know your intentions. Because you obviously have not shown me your full card, your full hand. So I want to see what this new card is up your sleeve. I want to see what that is. And then the next time we grapple, it's like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to let you get that angle again. Or, yeah, I'm going to let you get a deeper angle because I know that you don't know how to work it. Okay? So see how it starts to build little strategies there, here and there, right? So yeah, that happens a lot. So don't be afraid of creating space, creating distance. And what I was going to say is a very good example is MMA fights, okay? someone is always trying to get the jump on or the one up on right from the beginning, every single round, or whenever the referee stops them and separates them, one of them is always trying to like, get in the face of the other person first. Okay. How many times in any fight that you've seen in the UFC or any other promotion, but let's just say UFC for now because that's very readily available. How many times have you seen the referee say, like, okay, they point at the judges, like, are you ready? Back up, back up. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, back up, back up. Okay, fight.
Mhm.
How many times have you seen that? Right? Like almost every single fight. Okay? And the referee will go, okay, break, separate, opposite corner, separate. And the referee's like, okay, separates one guy and he's falling, and the other guy's like right here on his heels, and the guy, his opponent's right there, and he's like, no, over there, separate over there, get back. And then he's like, okay, fight. Okay? People will always do that. Okay? That's just the competitiveness of human nature.
Mhm.
Okay? But use that against them. Okay? Set them up. I know there's many times just in practice alone where, like I said, people will do that to me, and I know that they're gonna do that to me, so I let them.
Mhm.
Okay, and I will set them up into a particular guard, or I will set them up into a particular control that they probably were not expecting or were not comfortable with, being in. One of the easiest things, at least for me, is when people do that. I hear, like, say they're on their knees and they come up or whatever, they get real close, and like the timer goes on. So we go, like right here, and we go, and now she engages, like, oh, I just like drop to the side real quick, and they're thinking like, all right, I'm winning, right? We say go, and it's like, oh, but I drop right there. But I may leave this shield right here. And they don't even feel it because they're so busy celebrating or busy trying to get what they want, right? Like I gave them what they wanted before they even were ready for that. And that was me being on my back, so to speak, okay? But you see how I'm not flat on my shoulders, I'm on my side. Okay, so now she's up, she's like this. Go ahead. And it's like, oh, I'm flat on my back, but my saving grace is that I have the shin still right here. Okay, and then now she's probably not realizing, like, oh crap, my hips are kind of weird, so I have to do something. So I was like, oh, now I can just move around and do whatever. Okay, I can transition to whatever I want to do from there. Does that make sense? So like I was saying earlier, sometimes I will let the person pass so that I can actually get up on top or just disengage altogether. Okay? That's something similar to that. All right. I don't think we'll have time to get into, I can redirect the person into passing on the side that I want them to. Okay, but I said we engage, right? We go here. For the sake of this, just get closer, please. Just run out of space back there. Okay, so most of the time, people are going to pass on their left side, meaning the right side of the guard player. Okay, so if that's the case, I will, oblige them and fall to that side when they engage, like this. Okay, just like that. And as soon as that happens, I'm going to start to bring my shins in, maybe give them a little bit of space with my hips and the shins. And then I'm going to try to get them to like overcommit to my upper body by them trying to do like an underhook on me, which I'm not going to give them, or like a headlock. And I'm going to shrug it to try to come up behind them. Okay? Depending on how much their knees travel past my hips. Okay? So, again, for argument's sake, let's fall to this side so they can see. So it's like that. okay? But my feet are gonna be here, inside the person's knees. I don't want my one foot to be on the outside of the person's knees, okay? I don't want it to be like in a scissor position. I want it more like in a butterfly position, okay? So they're gonna be like, oh, okay. So they're like, trying to be here like this, and this kind of monitors them a little bit, right? So if I feel that they're gonna like pass over too much to one side, see how my knees are not going in, they're just going to the side. If that happens, well, I can now technical stand up, okay? Because they're over here like this, I just extend, frame, and up, okay? And why would I want to frame in front instead of trying to reach over them? Simple. I want them to feel the frame so the person can go higher, because that's a reaction. They're going to try to go over the mountain, okay, because they feel like they can't get through it. And if they try to go through it, it just moves further away. Okay? So little things like that, okay? I allow them to move how they want to move, but I never let them get close to me, right? So I was passing, she obliges over there, right there, and it's right here. The feet are inside, makes connection, right there, makes the connection. Okay, sometimes that person is really heavy, I may support it with my hand on my leg, okay? And I will allow them to walk, and they're already out. Okay. If I'm feeling pretty good about my ability, I may allow them to get even closer. All right, same thing. We go, pop, fist bump, and fall to the side, and allow their knees to get closer to my butt. Okay, you see that? Allow their knees to get closer to my butt, to her butt. And so that happens there. I still want to have this frame here. And this can be either in front or it can be behind. Okay? I preferably like to have it in the front here. But as they start to go over to the side, okay, sometimes they shove this to the side like this. And when they shove that to the side, you're going to use that momentum and keep their head moving down to the ground as you get your leg out. Okay? So it's like, kind of like that. I don't know if you could, were you able to see that?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can do it from this angle here. You know, it's like this. You're pushing back into them, and they're going a little bit to the side. They have, not yet, too soon. They have the angle. They have the angle, and they're like, this thing is just bothering me. They're like, here. So now I can dive forward. And when I dive forward, that scramble ensues. Okay? Does that make sense there? Let's see some other ways. Oh, same thing. Bump, slap, go. I fall to the side. Right there. You might get some guys that will weave their hands through and try to put pressure. Right? They're like smashing. And even if they get their knees off the ground, they're still smashing in there. Okay? As soon as they get this angle, they're trying to work for this angle. Okay? You're going to, get your arm back out, and you're going to turn your knee, both knees to the ground. Like this. Yeah, and get that leg out. Yeah. Yes. And sprawl your leg out and work to the back. Okay, let's see from this angle real quick. See here, person weaves, the pressure, they're like, going in. Well, now she comes up on her forearm. Yep, knees go to the ground. Hands get pushed down. That happens. Okay? So you're allowing them now to attack you and engage you, but you redirect them, and you kind of let them have a little bit of success, and then you surprise them. Okay? But all of this is very, very good and it works well. But you must have a good understanding of weight distribution.
We'll say that is very technical.
Yes. Okay. And that's the reason why. Okay. And not just weight distribution of your body, you must also have a good idea on how to use the weight distribution of your opponent against them. And how to use your own weight distribution to fill in gaps that your opponent is missing with their weight distribution. Okay? It's all very technical, you know, mumbo jumbo in a way. But a lot of it makes a lot of perfect sense once you start to experience it. All right? Some of these little strategies work wonders. Especially this one. I cannot stress this enough. Okay? That one. Now you just move back. Okay? Just move back just a little bit to where you're comfortable. Okay? That will probably be your most useful strategy that you will use in a training session, in competition. Okay? Once you get to that level that you understand this. All right? Any questions?
Done.
All righty, guys. We'll call it a night, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Okay. Bye-bye.